public hearing, which is a public hearing on alternative plans submitted to the board by the 2021 Redistricting Advisory Committee and the public to redistrict and reapportion the election districts of the Board of Supervisors, and authorization to advertise the board's intention to adopt a redistricting ordinance on December 7th, 2021. And so there's no affidavit for this item, and I'm going to give staff a moment to assemble. And while staff is assembling, I'll make a few notes for the public who's here. For those who are aware, we did have a redistricting advisory committee that was set up and met 13 times since July 27th. We did have significant challenges and delays in receiving census data and information, both from the federal government and the state, and then uploading that data to the mapping software. Forced the board to extend the committee by about 2 weeks during that period of time. On October 19th, the board authorized advertisement of all 64 proposed plans that we received. And so today we're holding a public hearing on all proposed plans and authorizes advertisement of the board's intention, as I announced a moment ago, to adopt an ordinance that would encompass and affect the redistricting plan on December 7th. So that's the stage we are at here, just to help set the stage a little bit. And let me recognize staff, if staff has any preliminary information or presentation before we begin the public hearing.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Erin Ward, Deputy County Attorney, and I've got a number of other county staff with me here today. There were quite a few county agencies involved in preparing for today and preparing for the redistricting generally. So let me introduce Carla Bruce, the county's Chief Equity Officer, Fatima Kaja, a demographer with the county's Department of Management and Budget, Sandy Woyak with the GIS unit of the Department of Information Technology. I've got behind me my colleague, Martin Desjardins, Assistant County Attorney, and Ravi Udeshi from the Office of Elections. As the chairman has already noted, this is a public hearing to consider 64 redistricting alternatives developed by the 2021 Redistricting Advisory Committee and members of the public. The United States and Virginia constitutions and state statute require local governing bodies that are elected by district to consider redrawing their election districts after each decennial census to maintain proportional representation. Besides proportionality, constitutional and statutory law require the newly drawn districts to comply with other legal requirements as well. The districts must be compact and contiguous. The boundaries of the districts must be clearly defined and observable. The changes must be made with a minimum disruption of the then existing district pattern of service. And the changes must satisfy federal and state constitutional and statutory requirements, as well as judicial decisions relating to racial and ethnic fairness. In addition to these legal requirements, in a resolution the board adopted on February 23rd of this year, the board established policies it would observe in conducting this redistricting. In that resolution, the board announced that it would consider plans that maintain 9 election districts, as well as any other plans that propose a lawful number of election districts. The urban county executive form of government, under which we operate here, allows between 5 and 11 members elected by district. The redistricting resolution announced that the board would consider existing geographical and political boundaries, including but not limited to incorporated town boundaries. And the board would consider established communities of interest, which the board defined as a neighborhood or geographically defined group of people living in an area who share similar social, cultural, and economic interests. The board also said in its resolution that it would consider existing districts and incumbent representation on local public bodies that may be affected by reapportionment. The resolution specified that the board would not consider plans that would result in a maximum population deviation that is 10% or greater, and would not consider redistricting plans that result in the denial or abridgment of the rights of any racial or language minority group to participate in the political process. Finally, the resolution encouraged redistricting plans based on existing voting precinct boundaries and said that if splitting precincts was necessary, then precincts should be divided along census block boundaries. The board structured this redistricting effort to maximize public participation. As the chairman has noted, the board established a 20-member redistricting advisory committee with membership representing all 9 election districts, as well as the county's diverse demographic groups and organizations. The board also directed the creation of a public portal on the county's website that included all the tools and information necessary for members of the public to create and submit proposed redistricting plans for consideration by the advisory committee and then by the board. Altogether, this public outreach and engagement has resulted, as the chairman noted, in the submission of 64 redistricting plans that are the subject of today's public hearing. All 64 of these plans have been available to the board and the public on the county's redistricting website for the past 4 weeks. And the committee submitted a report to the board with the plans and with additional information on November 1st. The board authorized advertisement of this public hearing at its meeting on October 19th, and advertisements were published in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Korean newspapers, and the Office of Public Affairs has publicized this hearing through a variety of outlets. At the conclusion of the public hearing, staff recommends that the board close the public hearing, but keep the record open for written comments, and defer decision until the next meeting on December 7th. Additionally, staff today seeks board authorization to publish an advertisement that notifies the public of the board's intention to adopt the ordinance on December 7th. Virginia law requires the adoption of redistricting plans by ordinance, but it doesn't require the board to hold another public hearing. Accordingly, staff recommends that the matter be scheduled and advertised as a decision-only item on December 7th. That concludes the staff presentation, and we're available here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ward, for that presentation. Are there any questions of staff at this time? Any questions of staff? Seeing and hearing none, this is a public hearing, and I have a number of speakers who have signed up in advance to testify on this public hearing. And our first speaker is Larry Clark, and Larry is here, we know, and will be followed by Dale Rumberger, who I also know is here. Will be speaker number 2. Larry, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. As residents of the South Fairfax area, we took the offer to submit a proposed redistricting map very seriously, and a group of our community from across the South Fairfax area worked very diligently to meet all of the parameters prescribed by the county. We believe we accomplished that goal with the addition of the South Fairfax district shown in map pub 10-0919-2029. This 10th district was constructed in strict accordance with all of the parameters prescribed by the county, particularly 1 Fairfax. Now is the time to form a South Fairfax magisterial district. I would venture to say that, unfortunately, some people still have the image of our South Fairfax area as where the landfills, prison, concrete batching plants, quarry, and wastewater treatment facility are located, sort of the industrial underbelly of Fairfax County. But through the hard work of this board and the residents of the South Fairfax community, the character and complexion of the area has changed dramatically in the last 2 decades, and equally important, continues to change and evolve. The Lorton prison was closed, and the county purchased 2,500 acres from the federal government. This land has been turned into homes, recreational facilities, and open areas for the citizens of Fairfax County. The Lorton landfill has been closed and will soon become Overlook Ridge Park, a major new addition to the park system, along with the recently opened Laurel Hills Central Green. The South Fairfax district we have designed encompasses a multitude of parks, from Burke Lake to Occoquan Regional Park, site of the recently unveiled Suffragettes Memorial. This district also creates a majority-minority district, fully in keeping with the 1 Fairfax policy. The county has made a number of large financial investments in the area as well, in projects such as the Workhouse Art Center, the Equestrian Center, the Laurel Hill Golf Course, the Liberty Adaptive Reuse Community, and in major upgrades to the Noman Coal Wastewater Treatment Facility. We are now a district of parks and ball fields and open areas. Given the unique nature of this region, it makes considerable sense to create a 10th district to include the South Fairfax region. It is time to give our area the direct representation it needs to chart its future. We are a community of new neighborhoods, diversity in our population, and a location of major additions as well. Overall, due to the change in the character of the area, we are now facing numerous challenges due to our population growth and additional planned facilities for the future, and unfortunately, the traffic that will accompany these additions. In addressing the future of our area, Fairfax County has funded the Lorton 2040 Visioning Task Force, which will likely pave the way for a new town center and other enhancements. The impacts of the proposed Alpine X Fairfax Peak skiing facility also support the need for a focused advocacy to ensure this development is executed properly and considers all the potential impacts to the area. We are therefore convinced that now is the right time for a South Fairfax magisterial district. We are now a destination rather than an area to avoid. In addition to the parks already noted, Pohick Bay Regional Park, Gunston Hall, and the Regional State Bureau of Land Management open areas and parks on Mason Neck all attract rather than repel visitors. The multiple significant investment the county has made and continues to make in upgrades to our facilities such as libraries and community centers, a police station and animal shelter need to be realized, preserved, and protected. Embracing the Fairfax One policy inherent in our design also mandates a clear and dedicated advocacy for the area and for our residents. We appreciate all that you are doing to chart a bright future for our county, and we ask that you consider our proposal in your deliberations. Through your efforts, we can all look forward to a county which will be the standard in education, transportation, and recreation by which other municipalities will be measured. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry. Our next speaker is Dale Rumberger, President of the South County Federation, and has 5 minutes. And is Safe Rahman here? I haven't seen Safe. Is Safe here? Okay. Welcome, Dale. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, members of the Board of Supervisors and executive staff of Fairfax County. My name is Dale Rumberger. I live at
by which other municipalities will be measured. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry. Our next speaker is Dale Rumberger, President of the South County Federation.
4 years. I've seen the county change and grow during that time and feel that an expansion in the number of magisterial districts is both timely and in order. I am president of the South County Federation, speaking for them this afternoon, and the over 17,000 households our membership boundary represents in the southeastern portion of this county. The South County Federation submitted 2 proposals that we felt met the legal requirements of the redistricting process, originally numbered 10-09-17-0041 and 10-09-19-2029. And those were titled the South Fairfax Magisterial District. The logic of our proposed addition and realignment is clear. We deeply feel that the current district number and alignment does not fully meet our needs as we point to the future in our community. And please don't get me wrong, we enjoy a great relationship with Mount Vernon Supervisor Dan Stork, who works incredibly hard to understand our growing needs and demands. Our purposeful act of submitting 2 10-district proposals was not aimed at him. Rather, it is an admission that the needs and wants of this magisterial district are rather at competing levels with distinctly different directions for the future. It might have worked okay for decades, but not now. Not given the issues that are on the table across this district. Transportation, land use, environment, parks all have distinctly different flavors in our magisterial district. While we do have density development in some areas, and there is some commercial development again in some areas, and you are aware of the industrial developments and county facilities located in our South Fairfax boundary, we have land use and transportation issues and philosophies that are distinctly and distinctive apart from Upper Mount Vernon. I hesitate to speak using that term because for every upper, there has to be a lower. And it is how people and sometimes staff and leaders do think. A great example of this is the current BRT Embark planning. Our interests lay in phase 3. Only phase 1 and 2 have been moved ahead in both planning and financing. It is but one example of how the area has been regarded. There were some district realignments that sought to divide out a portion of our existing boundary. I would ask you to reject dividing a community that we have worked hard to represent and unite for common purposes. We see the logic of using Fort Belvoir and the Fairfax County Parkway as demarcation points, natural, understandable demarcations for the southern portion of a 10th district. Our interests and needs are more closely connected with those developments adjacent to those 2 points than those of Huntington or Fort Hunt Park. I do not know every magisterial district's schizophrenia of competing needs and wants across each of those districts. I am assuming they exist in the minds and hearts of the leaders in each community, but I am sure that they do exist in each place. However, none so starkly, so vividly, is that of the South Fairfax magisterial proposal. We are different from Lee District, different from the industrial commercial Springfield area, and yes, Upper Mount Vernon. Our future is pointed in a direction and possibilities far different than those areas of the county. This view, this vision, this potential for difference has been known since the Memorandum of Understanding on the closure of the former Lorton Reformatory space was inked in 1996-97. County political leaders and central staff have known and worked and tried to understand and work with it. There is literally no other place in the county with our transportation needs, demographics, population growth, density potentials, and we face that each and every day. Our proposal sought to unite us and extend a boundary west and somewhat north, attempting to assist in solving a Springfield dilemma of location of leadership and development determiners coupled with park, green space, and minor density improvement. We also balanced each district population to within 2,500 citizens and left room for expansion in those areas where potentially they will have that issue. Finally, I'm here to speak about an area in transition in our county. I moved here 31 plus years ago from a great community in Burke. Our family was growing. The need and affordability of a larger house was the tipping point. In our time in Lorton, we have seen 3 new small shopping commercial plazas built, 3 new schools built, and 4 renovated and expanded to increase membership. 3 major roads and/or arterials have had lanes added. 3 more were improved. I cannot count the number of new housing developments that have been built and completed, are being built, and are on the docket for approval. People want to live here for our open space, our diversity, and our potential. When sharing with the executive our interest in stating aloud again and again our need to increase and extend our representation, I was asked by a leader in the Mount Vernon district if I was just planting a seed for future thought. I responded, I'm tired of planting seeds. I'm here to see the harvest. Thank you for your time and attention this afternoon. I apologize for going over.
Thank you very much, Dale. I understand speaker number 3, Jack Curley, is not here. Speaker number 4, Saif Rahman. I have not seen Saif, so we will circle back at the very end. We will now move to speaker number 5, Kathy Hosick, who I know is here. Speaker number 6, Holly DePaul. Is Holly here? Is Holly DePaul here? Okay. As a call-in. Okay. Speaker number 5, Kathy Hosick, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kathy Hosick, and I live in the Mount Vernon Magisterial District. Mount Vernon runs along the eastern edge of Fairfax County, bordered on the east by the Potomac River, the north by Alexandria City, and the south by Prince William County. That's important because we cannot expand in any other direction than west when you redraw the boundary lines. I've attended several of the redistricting meetings in person, and I also looked at all the 64 of the submitted maps, and I have some comments. The Mount Vernon District is a well-defined community of interest, and the residents share many common concerns that include but are not limited to transportation improvements, both Embark and improvements along the GW Parkway, the safety and security of our residents, a strong school system, parks, and the well-planned addition of density to support the transportation improvements of the Embark project. Huntington and Grosvenor precincts at the north end, I believe they should remain in the Mount Vernon district, as they are the gateway to the Richmond Highway corridor and the Embark development. If any precincts should need to move from the Mount Vernon district, the ones with the Springfield addresses should be considered first. The residents of those areas often make the assumption that they are in the Springfield district. This would help eliminate confusion and enhance neighborhood cohesiveness. If Fairfax County is moving toward implementing more equity with the One Fairfax plan, it makes sense that the location of the district offices are located conveniently for use by their constituents. In areas that do not have easy access to the supervisor office, the board should consider adding a satellite office. For example, in Lorton, you could add an office at the Lorton Police Station, which would also help set up a much easier transition in the future, as residents would know where to go for help when we will need a 10th or even 11th district. I'm talking about what Larry and Dale were talking about, same thing. The increase of the 68,583 new residents averages out to 6,700 new constituents per supervisor. The current maps with 9 districts give each supervisor about 128,000 constituents. Some thought should be given to what our threshold should be for equitable representation for all residents of Fairfax County. It is also projected that the development of the Richmond Highway Corridor will give us an additional 12,000 students in the next 10 years. That, coupled with all the development in the Lorton and Tysons area, highlight the need for us to consider future maps with a 10th district. Another thing that the board could consider is to create a task force in addition to the RAC committee to start looking at these issues a little bit earlier, say a year to 2 out, so that we don't have to wait for the census data, and we can look at where we think we should go, because everything was condensed this year and it was kind of a little scatterbrained and it was hard, and I love maps, but it was really hard for me to catch up with all of that. So in closing, I would like to say that the Mount Vernon district shares many common interests and should stay intact. The board should consider adding satellite offices in areas that are removed from access, and I do not support any map which excludes Montebello or Grosvenor or stops short of Woodlawn and Westgate on the southern end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy. Our next speaker is Holly DuPaul, who has joined us by phone. Ms. DuPaul is not connected. She's going to send an email. Okay. And that will take us to speaker number 7, Reverend David Miller. Reverend David Miller is here. He will be followed by Sue Rosenberg. Sue Rosenberg here? Ah, she is. Very good. Okay. Welcome, Reverend Miller. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, and I'd like to say to the board and staff, thank you so much for your service. In so many ways, in this community and in this country, we find ourselves at a crossroads. It's clear that there have been and continue to be competing visions of the nature, values, and future of America. I actually don't feel a need to get into the details of that. I will leave that to others. What I want to say is that change is constant and change is hard, and it feels even harder right now in these fraught and uncertain times. However, change never stops, and for me and many, if not most of the people to whom I pastor, there is a feeling that we are at a crossroads, and the crossroads we now face, for those who sit in the seats of political power, have a moral obligation to do the right thing, to promote policies which will benefit everyone and not just some. Sure, it's understood that there are always going to be competing needs and wants, and that puts pressure on political decision-making. It is the nature of politics. But in the specific case of redistricting, so many of these and other issues before you, I hope that there is courage and resolve to promote love of neighbor and dignity and wholeness of individuals and communities. Some of the primary questions that arise from this process are, will we promote equity in our decision-making and foster justice? Will we be more sensitive to those who have far too often been out of the mainstream and forced to live on the margins? Will we be more inclusive by basing our decisions on supporting the wholeness of all and not the privileges of some? Will we acknowledge that harm to one, a part of us harms us all? Will we recognize and admit to the historic harm done to communities of color through practices such as redlining and restrictive covenants? We create and maintain practices, especially when considering redistricting, that help address these historical inequities. As a representative of the Fairfax County FICA Faith and Equity Committee, I ask the deep consideration of racial equity in your redistricting process, and will support and fulfill how that will support and fulfill the One Fairfax policy to which the county has committed. Yeah. And in this process, and frankly, any related to it, it is vital that we listen to those who are historically marginalized and the communities of colors who have been victims of systemic racism that has influenced the drawing of lines throughout history of our county. Therefore, although there is a certain baseline criterion which all the redistricting plans have met, as we go forward to select a plan, we must maintain the integrity of our commitment to the One Fairfax policy, to equity, and to the process of recovering from practices like redlining and restricted covenants, which have historically harmed people of color in Fairfax. What does this mean in practice? We ask that you take into careful consideration how the drawing of the boundaries supports the political power of Blacks and Latinx communities. Do not dilute voting power by breaking those communities on a map. Politics can be a difficult balancing act, but far too often things have been out of balance, favoring those who would crack and splinter communities. Keep historically marginalized communities whole and intact, please. With the concept of one person and one vote, those whose voices that have been so often suppressed need fair and equal representation in every district. In addition, every community must also have equitable political and school board representation, as well as access to healthy and life-giving community goods and services. As people of faith, our job is to be accountable to our commitments and our values. And this is also what we expect from our elected representatives. One Fairfax and equity has been a commitment of the Board of Supervisors to begin undoing historic and systemic injustices. If we had all recognized the historic harm that has been a result of our American political system, let us here in Fairfax come away from this crossroads about redistricting and other policy decisions using the filter above all others of building a beloved community and basing our decisions on the guidance of the moral call to love our neighbor as ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Reverend. Our next speaker is Sue Rosenberg, and Sue is speaker number 8. Sue, welcome. The floor is yours.
My name is Sue Rosenberg, and I live in Shouse Precinct. And for those of you who are not familiar with Shouse Precinct, it's the triangle between the Dulles Toll Road, Route 7, and Beulah Road. Even though Shouse has a Vienna zip code, the real community of interest is McLean. And I urge you to consider only those supervisor districts that keep Shouse Precinct with the McLean area, because Shouse and McLean have several strong ties. First of all, Shouse kids go to McLean schools. Colvin Run Elementary, which is right in the middle of Shouse Precinct, is in the Langley Pyramid. Second, Shouse is an active member of the McLean Citizens Association with a resident on the McLean board. Third, we are protected by the McLean Police. But most importantly, Route 7 is not a divider, but a uniter between Shouse and Kenmore precincts. In fact, when I first moved here, Shouse was part of Kenmore. We've worked together on many issues, such as, obviously, the Route 7 construction, other recent issues that we've worked on together, the cell towers, the Arden development, and its impact on the north-south traffic patterns, and stormwater management issues. Stormwater management pipes tie together Kenmore and Shouse. The water flows from Kenmore through Shouse Precinct. And Supervisor Faust knows how much stormwater management has been an issue for our community. And in addition, most of the students in Colvin Run Elementary live north of Route 7. So for all those reasons, I would strongly urge you to keep Shouse together with this community of interest in McLean. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Our next speaker is Catherine Ward, who has joined us by phone. Ms. Ward, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can,
Okay.
Chairman.
Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chairman McKay, Supervisor Stork, and supervisors. My name is Catherine Ward. I live on Gladstone Place, and I'm the co-chair of the Mount Vernon Council of Citizens Associations. We established a special committee for redistricting and offer the following comments. You've just heard eloquent comments from Mr. Rumberger, Mr. Clark, and Ms. Hosek, so my comments are general and brief. The Mount Vernon District has a clear community of interest in matters such as the development along the entire length of Richmond Highway, mass transit improvements, better schools, improved housing and business opportunities, a healthier natural environment, adequate stormwater management, and safer and more equitable neighborhoods. We've reviewed extensively all 64 maps that were presented to you. We debated these, we wrestled over them, but we currently see no burning need to change the Mount Vernon District makeup at this time. We also believe that considering the current and expanded growth potential in Mount Vernon District, that a dedicated office of permanent additional staffing should be funded to accommodate the far-flung citizenry located in the southern portion of the Mount Vernon District. This type of action could also benefit other districts throughout the county. As always, we thank you for your time and willingness to hear our views, and the decision you make on the maps presented to you will have a major impact on the county's success into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate your testimony. Our next speaker is speaker number 10, Paul Berry, and he will be followed by speaker number 11, David Heckman. Is David here? Is David Heckman here? Okay, he is. If you want to come down a little bit closer, you'll be the next speaker. And Paul Berry, speaker number 10, is also the chair of the RAC, and I want to express deep appreciation to you for all the time and effort that you spent with the RAC committee to date, and welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Paul Berry. I'm a substitute teacher in Fairfax County Public Schools, and I recently had the privilege of chairing the 2021 Redistricting Advisory Committee. I live in Reston. I'm here today to highlight some of the important elements of the report. At over 400 pages, we sent you quite a bit of material, so my hope is to underline some of the elements we discussed that merit extra attention. I would first point out that we enjoyed a tremendous amount of support from county staff throughout the process. Many of them are sitting behind me here. This support enabled us to focus on our core mission of interacting with the public in a focused, productive setting. Our committee was 100% citizen-led, and this strong direct connection to the communities around us enabled a transparent, open process that encouraged participation. We see that those results in the report itself. More public maps were submitted than in any previous redistricting effort. Our core work was focused on producing the report you have before you, containing maps that envision a new way to conduct the business of the people in Fairfax County through free and fair elections. Growth in the county over the past decade required us to examine where imbalances in underrepresentation existed. Where those imbalances did exist, we thoroughly discussed how to create a magisterial district map that brought greater equity to bear. Equity was a dominant theme throughout our work, and we used the county's One Fairfax policy that you passed in 2017 as a basis for evaluating different aspects of county life. I'd like to thank Fairfax County's Chief Equity Officer, Carla Bruce, for her guidance and for helping the committee understand where vulnerable populations live, the strategies currently in place to help them, and how redistricting can complement those efforts. The Redistricting Advisory Committee discussed the most effective ways we could continue these efforts to build a prosperous, diverse county. It is our recommendation that the Board of Supervisors undertake a process that evaluates the names of magisterial districts and precincts. Prejudice of days past lingers in many places in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I encourage the board to consider how we might do our part as residents of Fairfax County to erase it from our common lexicon and public institutions. The relationship between our public institutions and the residents of Fairfax is a special one, and the Redistricting Advisory Committee focused our work on how to continue the progress made these past years with an effective reapportionment process. We strongly encourage the board to consider the concept of minimal disruption when examining the maps we presented in our report. Minimal disruption is the idea that residents of a political geography have as much stability in their civic life as possible. In a real setting, such as the reapportionment, this means the fewest disruption to the districts and precincts of Fairfax, while allowing for necessary changes that bring about balance and proportional representation. Many of the plans in the report emphasize minimal disruption while achieving greater equity. Both the public and the Redistricting Advisory Committee agree on this point. The public and the Advisory Committee independently submitted more 9 district maps than any other type. After strong outreach efforts, a public forum, public participation in the map drawing, and now this open hearing, I would recommend that the board adopt a new map that is from one of the 9 district plans that reflect the opinion of many commissioners, citizens, civic associations, and other groups. I once again wish to commend the board for its decision to take the map drawing process out of the hands of elected officials and for putting it into the hands of citizens themselves. New General Assembly and congressional lines continue to be a question mark. While that process remains uncertain, there's an opportunity to adopt a map that stabilizes this uncertainty by making as few changes as are necessary to magisterial district lines. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Paul. And again, thank you for your leadership. This has been a tall order. We did a board matter earlier today to extend the group further into the future to have the discussion about the names that you referenced. And so I know the work of the committee, the RAC, will continue. But again, can't thank you enough. It was a tall order in a very short period of time, a lot of meetings and a lot of time commitment on your part. And so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is speaker number 11, David Heckman. David, come on down. And David's a representative of Homes Run Acres Civic Association. And the floor is yours. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Berry, for chairing a very challenging process. The county has handled it much better than counterparts in Richmond and elsewhere. My neighborhood of Homes Run Acres has been forward-looking for 70 years. It was a special treat to see so many children getting vaccinated in the lobby. Our own historian, Vivian Smith, wrote a letter to the New Yorker just a few years ago about how important it is that we chip in as a community. A whole archive of our history in the Providence District maintained by Vivian is available at our website, homesrunacres.com. Our community has supported redistricting since 1958. We were a county that was beset with poor districting choices, bad representation, prejudice, indictments of supervisors, you name it, we had it. And the county brought in a consultant, Don Larson, to try to fix that up. And Vivian's neighbor, Sarah Lar, was one of the people who brought him to community meetings at Vivian's church, actually, in Annandale. And it took about 9 years to get these recommendations carried out. And the first thing we did at a county was redistricting, just like you see today. We valued communities of interest. We tried to get an entire district for Springfield, an entire district for Annandale. Those have moved around and actually degraded community of interest over the years. We urge you to unite vulnerable communities together in single districts again where possible. And we especially wanted one person, one vote. From the strategic plan, I hope that you ask yourself how these districts align with the goals that you're trying to promote. Some of these plans do it better than others. Our own precinct is unique in that we're very small, only 2,000 voters. We've been split up over the decades into other precincts, and we have more jobs than people in our district. And we've always been vulnerable to highway projects, different visions of development over the years. And throughout it all, we've tried to multitask and help our community and help our neighbors, while we also try to make development more reasonable and work better for the public. That's why we strongly object to 4 of the first plans in the redistricting report. They actually split our precinct in half unnecessarily. We only have 2,000 voters now, and we're very vulnerable to development along the Beltway. Here's what our precinct looks like. As you can see, it's largely forest. It's why we cared so much in 1967 about being in Providence. This area, we're the pink area on this map, and the area to the north is the Childs Tract, which was the last piece of land to be developed in Merrifield and on the Beltway. It was sought as a place for George Mason University, for Fairfax Hospital, for Fairview Park, for Mobil Oil, for the County Government Center, Northern Virginia Community College. Everybody wanted to be here. And we're still doing comprehensive plan task forces. We've been through, I think, 3 of them in Merrifield over the last 4 decades, and we're happy to be a part of them. Our neighbors who were split up and moved to the Mason District 10 years ago in Walnut Hill lost out on the chance to be a part of Fairview Park redevelopment. The Mason Planning Commissioner had strong words about it. We agree with her. There's not a lot of cross-district cooperation, and rather than fix that, it's important just to get the districts right. In 2019, for only the 2nd time, we had more residents working in Providence than in DC. But those residents that get to DC and Arlington, they want to be able to bike to Metro. We had plans for bike trails to Dunloring, actually, in the fiscal year 75 plans. They never got built. Instead, the state tore down the neighborhood right next to ours to expand 495. So we're still looking for bike trails. We're happy to see the active Fairfax plan. We're happy to see the comprehensive plan fix that situation. But we need more than plans. We need a supervisor who fights for both sides of the Beltway, makes it a budget priority to use proffer dollars to complete trails and bridges from Mason and Providence district communities all the way to Dunloring. And because we have 495 transurban and Dominion right-of-way right by our neighborhood, it's going to be really hard to coordinate between 2 supervisors and all those stakeholders. Here you see the 1967 redistricting. It was such a big deal that 4 high schoolers at Herndon High School spent 2 weeks to create Fairfax County's first 9-district plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Our next speaker is Eddie Sandoval, who's joined us by telephone. Eddie, can you hear me okay? Mr. Sandoval, can you hear me okay? Mr. Sandoval?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Let me check.
We can hear you. Is Mr. Sandoval still connected?
Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, I'm connected. Sorry,
Okay.
I saw the issue.
Okay, the floor is yours. You have 3 minutes.
Oh, yes. Good afternoon. My name is Eddie Sandoval, and I'm representing to speak to you, address about I'm here to advocate about the proposed about redistricting plans for the future, for the redistricting program, about who we will next representative, or be my new district, or who will be a new community will make changes. Because the reason why I'm calling today, because I'm here taking on the stage, is to want to know who I know, because I figured out, because I check on each districting of 7 districts, including Braddock, Huntington Mill, Mason, Providence, Mount Vernon, Surrey District. There are over tons of proposed ideas that who will be replaced to be representative, or who will be a new one or old one, or who will be the best for represent to replace the redistricting plans or for the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, which I am, because if we do, because if you guys make a change to make plans for both, who will be in charge of in my circumstances of making, for example, like, is this will be my old one or a new one to replace? Because I understand the population is growing on 2020 census. You guys are making a change. So what can you do to, like, I know that we want to make changes for our circumstance. Like, I want to make sure that each election, or to be safe, integrity like that, or doing the redistrict plans. And there's so many that whichever you guys want, whichever on the proposal, which I'm in and live in district. I understand who will be on my population's growing, the younger, the suburban areas about to grow, but it's a change opportunity that, okay, we must advocate to say okay, this is who would be I must think about that. What I'm saying is that the proposal redistricting of that may change or not, but it depends. But I prefer that it'll be the same or not, but I'm okay with that. But if you're redistricting like this, which are all tons of districts, I can name all of them, meaning that Surrey, Springfield, Mount Vernon, Lee, Braddock, Mason, Providence, all that stuff can make a change, or whether or not whether or not who is, which one could be represented on your district, so they can advocate and they can discuss about what is the change, or what do you want to make changes, or how do you want to handle that, make a progress, to advocate. Thank you for your time, and thank you. I'm here on my phone, and you heard this, and this is a message to you guys. Think about what you want to be. Think about that if you change. That's all I want to say. Thank you, and thank you so much, and have a nice day.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Our next speaker is speaker number 13, Nancy Wolochka. Nancy, can you hear me okay?
I sure can. Can you hear me?
We can hear you great. You are president of the Mason Neck Citizens Association and have 5 minutes, and the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you very much. Yes, good afternoon. I am Nancy Wolochka, president of the Mason Neck Citizens Association, MNCA. Our mission for over 40 years has been to promote the preservation of the historic, archaeological, and environmental resources of Mason Neck, and to educate the community and the public in general about the unique resources of Mason Neck. Mason Neck is a 10,000-acre peninsula, and about 7,500 acres of that are public land, with Pohick Bay and Fort Belvoir to the north, Occoquan Bay to the south. Our partners span all levels of government: federal, the BLM Meadowwood, Mason Neck State Park, Gunston Hall, Elizabeth Hartwell Wildlife Preserve, Potomac River National Wildlife Refuge Complex, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and Pohick Bay Regional Park. With so many natural resources fulfilling a critical part of our growing South County area, we strongly believe that now is the time to form a South Fairfax magisterial district. In fact, never before in the rich history of this area has there been an opportunity such as this to solidly shape our future. The 12-member board of directors for MNCA unanimously support this opportunity to add the South Fairfax district as shown in map pub 10-0919-2029. This action simply cannot be pushed down the road. The rapid rate of development, the enormous county expenditures in the area, and the vision laid out in Fairfax County's Lorton 2040 Visioning Task Force all validate and support this additional district. The 10th district being proposed was constructed in strict accordance with all of the parameters prescribed by the county, particularly 1 Fairfax. Given the unique nature of this region, it makes considerable sense to create the 10th district to include the South Fairfax region. It's time to give our area direct representation it needs to chart its future. Beyond Mason Neck, this part of Lorton is comprised of new neighborhoods, diversity in our population, and the location of future major additions as well. On Mason Neck, our collective park attendance swelled post-pandemic several times their normal visitor rate. The MNCA board would like to recognize all of the hard work done by so many to get us to this point. Thank you for considering our position. We represent over 1,000 Mason Neck residents, tens of thousands of visitors who enjoy our parks every year, and for the many stewards of our exceptional parklands here. Again, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Nancy. Our next speaker is John Candle, president of the Montebello Condominium Unit Association. John, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just great. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. My thanks to the Board of Supervisors for the opportunity to speak on the issue of redistricting. My name is John Candle, and I am the president of the Montebello Condominium Unit Owners Association. As I think many of you know, Montebello is a large condo community on Richmond Highway just south of the Beltway. Our front entrance, actually our only public access, is Richmond Highway. We have been part of the Mount Vernon District for many years. Our front yard is Richmond Highway, Huntington, Bellhaven, Bellevue, Ken Dog, Groveton, Hybla Valley, Mount Vernon, and the towns further south and west. The 2,200 residents of Montebello work, commute, shop, and receive hospital care in the Mount Vernon District. We dine in the restaurants in the Mount Vernon District. It is our front yard. Our lives and our future are intertwined with the Mount Vernon District. All of the coming changes, the 3 housing and commercial properties currently under construction, the half dozen or more sites under consideration, and the planned Embark Richmond Highway and North Gateway projects are and will have significant impact on the lives of Montebello residents. And Montebello should have a voice about our front yard. We have had that voice as a member of the Mount Vernon Council of Citizens Association. I've seen the various proposed redistricting maps. Some of them place Montebello into the lead district. I'm sure that on occasion, Montebello residents shop or dine or visit a hospital in lead district. But construction and urban planning that may occur in Kingston, Franconia, or Springfield does not affect the daily lives of Montebello residents. I understand the desire to try to keep population balance across Fairfax County District, but it makes no sense to rip Montebello from Mount Vernon District just for the sake of numeric equilibrium, to separate Montebello from where we work, where we shop, and where we eat. In fact, the majority of the redistricting maps that have been submitted to the advisory committee maintain the required population balance while keeping Montebello a part of the Mount Vernon District. Moving the dividing line between the Mount Vernon and Lee District to Richmond Highway, thus moving Montebello into Lee District, would be devastating for Montebello residents. It would separate our bodies from our lives. Please do not cut Montebello off from our front yard. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker is Jeff Agnew, President of the Providence District Council. Mr. Agnew, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, Chairman.
Welcome. The floor is yours, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman McKay, Supervisor Palchik, and members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Jeff Agnew, and I reside at 3524 Laurel Leaf Lane in Fairfax, Virginia, 22031. I currently serve as President of the Providence District Council. On behalf of the homeowners and civic associations in Providence District, the PDC Board of Directors appreciates the opportunity to share some views on Fairfax County redistricting with you. As many of you know, PDC is an umbrella organization comprised of civic, homeowner, condo, co-op, and tenant associations which lie within the Providence Magisterial District. Well, overall, the PDC board remains concerned about the potential for the Providence Magisterial District boundaries to be redrawn unfavorably to its district residents, resulting in decisions that could negatively impact member communities. First and foremost, we ask the board to do no harm. We encourage the Board of Supervisors to provide timely information, transparency, stability, and take the necessary steps to minimize disruption to Providence District and its citizens. Our membership has had the opportunity to review the U.S. Census data, assess its impact on redrawn electoral maps, and more fully engage our membership to understand and represent their views and concerns. Several Providence members have raised concerns regarding the ongoing redistricting process in Fairfax County. Specifically, I'd like to highlight 2 of our member HOAs who've expressed strong reservations about their prospect of being relocated to a new magisterial district. These include the Homes Run Acres community, a National Register site, a Merrifield community of interest since the 1960s at the intersection of I-495 and Gallup Road. They support redistricting plans that keep the entire Woodburn precinct in the Providence District. As David indicated earlier in his testimony, Homes Run Acres is alarmed by numerous proposals that target its small precinct, unnecessarily splitting it in half along I-495. Several redistricting plans could cause their neighborhood grave injury. Homes Run will lose a voice in the decisions that matters most to their homeowners if they are redistricted. Homes Run Acres wishes to keep its voice in Providence District to be a voice for our Providence neighbors for years to come. As part of the Graham Greenway voting precinct, the residents of Jefferson Village are also concerned about potential reassignment from Providence District. Years ago, during divisions taking place between the county and the city of Falls Church, their communities were removed from our namesake town. They do not wish to leave behind the strong ties they have built with Supervisor Palchek and the communities in Providence District. Furthermore, they are concerned with being left in the unenviable position of belonging administratively to one district while their children attend schools covered by a school board representative from another. The citizens of Jefferson Village ask that these factors be considered when making any decision regarding selection of maps and hope that they can remain a part of Providence District's future. Lastly, 2 questions for the Board of Supervisors we hope might be addressed during today's public meeting. Between today's public meeting and the scheduled December 12th Board of Supervisors meeting, how does the public learn of and offer further comment on the board's redistricting map decision? In the event the redistricting map decision adopted by the Board of Supervisors creates one or more districts, when will a new supervisor or supervisors be elected? We anticipate having a resolution addressing redistricting adopted by our membership following our November 10th tomorrow monthly meeting, and we'll share it with the Redistricting Advisory Committee, Planning Commission, and the Board of Supervisors. Chairman McKay, thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Agnew. And you asked 2 specific questions, and at the end of the public hearing, I'll ask Ms. Ward to respond to those 2 about continued collaboration, communication with the board, and then also what happens after we approve our redistricting plan. Our next speaker is speaker number 16, and that is Mayor Linda Colbert, the mayor of the town of Vienna, who I know is here. Welcome, Mayor. The floor is yours, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, Chairman McKay and all the supervisors. You have 64 district proposals, options. In the town of Vienna, we are looking at 6 lot coverage options, and so I do not envy you. We thought that was a lot. There are just 2 things, really, that I ask, and that is that Vienna stay in a single district. That's number 1. And the second is that you do keep Vienna in the Hunter Mill district. We have always been served well in this district. We are represented well, and we have a good relationship. We've always had a good relationship with our supervisor. We just had the tour of the Hunter Mill, and we have to keep that going, so we love that. But we do understand the need to redistrict, definitely. But Vienna's population, our demographics are really not changing dramatically, so we see no need for a change. I have 2 council members here with me tonight. They are in support of keeping us in the Hunter Mill district. And I just want to thank you for keeping our concerns under consideration. Thank you for all the work you do for Fairfax County, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you for your collaboration on so many things. It's good to see you. Our next speaker is speaker number 17, Robbie Snow, who has joined us by phone. Mr. Snow, can you hear me okay?
Hello, but it's Mrs. Snow.
Mrs. Snow.
Anyway,
Mrs. Snow, welcome. Welcome. See, this is what happens when we have phone testimony. Mrs. Snow, welcome to the board auditorium. You have 5 minutes to address us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Chairman McKay and supervisors, thank you for the opportunity to speak at this meeting. It is an honor to represent the community ABCD serves and Providence District. A little about my organization. Arlington Boulevard Community Development, ABCD, is a nonprofit based in the Kingsley Commons townhome community located along the Falls Church corridor of Arlington Boulevard, Route 50, between the Beltway and Graham Road. There are 500 townhomes in the community. 100 are designated Kingsley Park and administered under Fairfax County Public Housing. The other 400 Kingsley Commons are market rate family rental units, which also take Section 8 vouchers. Kingsley is a diverse, highly immigrant community. The majority of the population is of Hispanic origin. We house over 85% of the registered students at Graham Road Elementary School and average 200 students at Falls Church High School located in Mason District. The Kingsley community and ABCD have had a long and rewarding relationship with Fairfax County government, going back to Jerry Conley and Kate Hanley days on the board, under whose advocacy a traffic light control crosswalk was installed across Route 50 to Graham Plaza, then known as Loman's Plaza. Providence Supervisor Linda Smith was instrumental in building a practice field at the Graham Road Community Building after the school moved down the street. Our partnership with the county and neighborhood and community services, we have had the privilege of housing a computer technology program on site, one of few in the county. In recent years, we have worked closely with Supervisor Palchuk, who has embraced our community and its residents. She has been instrumental in bringing both educational and enrichment opportunities to our community. Excuse me. Being located on the edge of two districts, Mason and Providence, it would be easy for us to be lost in the shuffle. However, our strong relationship with Providence District has provided us with an ally and advocate who listens to all voices. During the pandemic, the Supervisor's Office made sure to include us in the walkability study and the increase of the network of sidewalks. By bringing the study into the community, the process provided a volunteer opportunity for several young people to experience grassroots civics in action. A tangible outcome of the survey has brought a traffic garden to the Graham Road Community Building. Also, the Providence office was instrumental in helping to relieve food insecurity within the community by connecting us with needed food resources. First with Food for Others and then with the Capital Area Food Bank to bring the USDA Farm to Family Food Program into the community. The supervisor and her staff were also hands-on volunteers at weekly food distributions and helped to connect with the Fairfax County Police Department, McLean District, to provide police presence at the weekly distributions. These weekly food distributions provided over 350 boxes of food to families on a weekly basis. The program ran from September 2020 to June of 2021. After June, the program transferred to Jamesley Community Center, but the supervisor made sure the pedestrian walk-up clients, about 35, still received the food by making it available at the Kingsley Commons Computer Technology Center, which is on our property. The supervisor also worked with ABCD and the health department to register residents for the COVID vaccine. She also provided an added advocate voice to bring a vaccine clinic into the neighborhood. Our community has found a caring and trusting partner within Providence District, and we hope to continue it going forward. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak at this meeting.
Thank you very much, Ms. Snow, for your testimony. And that brings us to the end of our speakers who have signed up in advance to testify. We did skip over speaker number 3, Jack Curley, who I understand is not attending to testify, and also speaker number 4, Saif Rahman. Is Saif here? Has he gotten here? Still do not see him. So at this point, is there anyone else in the auditorium who would like to testify on this matter today? Anyone else who is here to testify on this matter? Seeing and hearing no one, let me ask the clerk if there's anyone who has called in to testify. No additional callers have called in to testify at this time. We'll look to staff for any closing comments.
Mr. Chairman, Erin Ward with the County Attorney's Office. We have no further staff comments. I do have answers to the questions Mr. Agnew posed, if you'd like me to address those now.
Please.
Okay. Mr. Agnew's first question is, between today And when the board makes a decision on December 7th, how does the public continue to give input to the board? I think the best way for that would be to submit their comments to the clerk. The clerk, as you know, has a system for disseminating all public comments to all members of the board. There's I think, a button or a link on the county's redistricting page, making it easy for people to know where they can submit those comments. Mr. Agnew's second question was, if the new plan creates a new district, when will a new supervisor be elected? After the board adopts the ordinance, as you know, we need to submit the new redistricting plan to the Virginia Attorney General for his review. The state law requires review by the Virginia Attorney General, and we have to wait about 60 days for him to issue a certificate of no objection. So we would expect that to come sometime in late February. After that time, then, the board would petition the circuit court to order a special election to elect a new supervisor from the new district. And the law specifies that the court would order that the election be held within 45 days of the request.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ward. And in addition, on the first question that was asked, we will hold the record open for those comments all the way up to December 7th, when I believe we're going to have a motion in a moment to set as a date for which we might make a decision. And so we will keep the record open up until the time in which the board acts, so that the public can continue to weigh in on this up until our board action takes place. I also want to point out that as I mentioned earlier, and Chairman Berry was here and testified about looking at the names of magisterial districts, that the task force will be extended to explore the names of magisterial districts and issue recommendations to the county board as a part of that process after the redistricting has occurred. And certainly the board has the latitude to change district names without changing boundaries outside of this process, just as we have the latitude to make specific precinct changes, so long as they're not moving one precinct from one magisterial district into another magisterial district. And so we do recognize that at the end of the redistricting action, there still will be some work to be done by the board and some citizen input that will continue even beyond the December 7th date. So just want to make sure I point that out. At this time, are there any questions of board members? Any questions of board members? Seeing and hearing none, I will now close the public hearing and recognize the chair of our legislative committee, Supervisor Walkinshaw, for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Board of Supervisors close the public hearing, but keep the record open so that we can continue to receive and consider written comments on the proposed alternative redistricting plans, defer our decision on a redistricting plan until our next meeting on December 7th, 2021 at 3:00 p.m., and authorize staff to publish a newspaper advertisement giving notice that the board intends to adopt an ordinance at our December 7th, 2021 meeting that will amend Fairfax County Code Chapter 7, Article 2 to affect the 2021 redistricting and establish the county's new election districts. So moved.
And I'm happy to second that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Supervisor Walkinshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to just echo the appreciation you expressed for the RAC members and everyone who has testified and sent in comments. You know, this is a challenging process, and reading the letter from Chair Berry from the RAC, he outlined the values that they used as a framework, which I think for the most part are derived from the resolution that this board passed: equity, diversity, and inclusion, the vulnerability index, minimal disruption, communities of interest, historical neighborhoods, natural geography, infrastructure and man-made structures, and compactness. And one of the realities that I know all the members of the RAC learned when they sat down and started looking at precincts on a map is that when you do that process, these values sometimes conflict. And when you focus on minimal disruption, you might have a harder time achieving the compactness that you want to achieve, or vice versa. So I appreciate the plans that they came up with that reflected a balance of those different values and priorities, and I think as a board, that's probably what we should be working toward as we approach December 7th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Walkinshaw, and you've prompted me to remind everyone of one other thing that we're very grateful for, and one of the speakers mentioned it, which is this is a very different process than used in Richmond for redistricting, and I, in the past lives, have served on a redistricting committee myself, as has Supervisor Alcorn, and I can attest to how open and transparent our process is, and a model for how you do redistricting. And so contrary to much of the national news, things that we're seeing happen in Richmond, let us not confuse our redistricting process here in Fairfax County with those redistricting procedures that are in place. Very different. We just had a public hearing. We had over 60 plans submitted. We had a citizen committee that met 13 times once we got census data information. And we will continue to accept comments in an open and transparent way all the way up to our meeting on December 7th. And so a really important distinction about how we do things here compared to how things may happen in other places. And so appreciate that. And with that, I think we're ready to vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? And that motion carries. And